Right, hi guys, welcome to my presentation tonight, masterclass on how to play the 4-4-2 system in and out of possession. I will always talk about transition as well, and I do make parts of that. For those who haven't joined us before, I've delivered many presentations. I was a player that never made it, never become a professional, but spent 8 years behind at West Ham United. For a couple of seasons, 2 years, and I was at Leyton Orient. So pretty soon I went into coaching, and I went into coaching at Leyton Orient, and I've coached at many clubs, including Orient, Tottenham Hotspurs, West Ham United, Stevenage, Charlton Athletic, in terms of academies. So I've got lots of experience helping produce players. I've been fortunate enough to win lots of tournaments and things with young teams, with good players in different countries. I went into coach education. You can see some pictures that Mauricio's now putting up. This is in Warsaw, the National Stadium, where that club that you're seeing there with myself, that's Lewandowski's side. When he was junior, that was a team that he played for. So got very extensive experience as a coach and a coach educator game as well, working with professionals and working with international players, admittedly of smaller nations. You can see a few pictures when we was allowed outside, and we even had a bit of sun. That was in Poland. So a couple of pictures of me putting on some presentations abroad. I get invited to different countries to put on theoretical and practical presentations. So Richio's got a couple more pictures. This was when I was in the female game at Millwall, and that is in the tunnel as you walk out the Lions Den. So I had experience of working in the female game. That's not a tale about fishing, that one. That's probably something about being flat and dropping off. But hi to Thomas Dodds, you've just come in. So moving on. Good. But like I said, guys, welcome. This is my presentation on the 4-4-2 system. I have presented on other systems, and I will be presenting in 3 weeks' time on a 4-4-2 system, and we'll do a diamond midfield. So that's something else. But like I said, people ask me, what system's the best system? There is no best system. Players win football matches. Systems do not win football matches. So I just want to emphasize that. So first and foremost, we're going to put a slide up in a minute, but it's very important. Hopefully you can see the numbers at home, and that's why we've got some slides that Mauricio will put on in a minute, not just yet. Is 4-4-2. How you see the presentation is obviously now the game. It will morph into that 4-4-2. And just in terms of the numbering system, being in coach education, I've been in coach education for nearly 30 years now. Started at a very young age, when I was about 6. Seriously, I started in my mid-20s, and I've done a lot of presentation and coach education. And it's really important for me to talk about relationships with players, talk about the numbering system as we go along the back 4. And I've got a 2, a 5, a 6, and a 3. It's the way I number them. When I work in different countries, obviously the numbers change, and when I present in different countries, they'll say this is the number 4, yeah, this is the 5, this is the 3, and a 6 will be in midfield. But for our purposes, 2, 5, 6, and 3 back 4, 4 and 8 central midfield players, 7 and 11 wide midfield players, and the front 2, a 9 and a 10. So 4-4-2, profiling of players, because we said it's more important about the players and what they can do. I want a goalkeeper who's a good shot stopper, and I want him or her to have good distribution, particularly when we're playing 2 up front, and I'll talk about advantages and disadvantages of the system. I want a goalkeeper who's a sweeper keeper as we get higher, has the ability to read the game. Modern day teach of goalkeepers, 70% of his touches at the highest level with his feet or her feet. So we need to make sure that they have good distribution. 2 central defenders. If I can have physically quick, athletic 2 centre halves who can head and volley, particularly if we're going to play in the lower divisions, but also in the Premier League, and also if we're going to play in European leagues, we do need to be able to defend first and foremost. We do need to head and volley, but we need to be aware of the involvements and the game moving on, and being comfortable in possession. Okay, and that's really important. They've got to have an understanding of winning battles aerially, one-on-one, being able to cover and getting round when the ball's on the other side and seeing danger, etc. But like I said, haven't got to be 6'4", but can they play? Can they leap? Can they get up? Can they win headers? Are they brave physically, as well as brave in possession and wanting the ball? Two fullbacks, as we know. Fullbacks in this day and age are very, very instrumental in the game. Got to be very good aerobically to get up and down the pitch. Massive part of the game now. Good energy, good engines, very, very important. And be able to deliver from deeper, wider areas, and also have the ability when they get high up the pitch to play little combinations. And you'll see fullbacks nowadays into the byline, little cutbacks. You'll see fullbacks in particular playing narrow, almost like an extra midfield player, which Pep has introduced with Carl Walker. And other sides are doing that. So aerobically, physically, up and down the pitch, but technically neat and tidy. Now we come to the engine room, the 4 and 8, the central midfield players. Need them to be dynamic. What do we mean by dynamic? The ability to go from box to box. So again, physically, the modern game is about having that engine to get up and down, being technically able to receive the ball with back to goal or sideways on, and having the ability to play forwards, particularly in this system. Okay, so there's lots of players out there that are very comfortable. Their stats are good. They keep the ball, but they play square. You know, they play backwards. I'm looking for players who can play forwards, whether they play in behind or up to feet. And we'll talk about priorities of passing as we progress through the presentation. So, obviously having an understanding if one was to go on, that the other one sits and holds, and vice versa. The ball's on this side of the pitch, and I'll talk about my roles and what I instruct my players to do. So they've got the ability of an understanding of when to sit and when to hold. Wingers. I personally prefer my wingers, and a question was asked by Mark, and I'll answer that later. I like to have right-footed right wingers and left-footed left wingers. That doesn't mean to say it's the only way. It doesn't mean to say that I wouldn't swap them and they become inverted wingers, where a right-footed player plays on the left and cuts inside, and vice versa. But what I'm thinking of, the bigger picture is, if we're going to play 2 players high up the pitch, I want to get crosses in. And for me, if you're going to come inside, it's all right having combinations. That's great. And we need to mix the game up. But I think it's really important, and I'll talk about the advantages of playing 2 up front and the advantages of getting crosses in. So, invariably, obviously good energy to get up and down, because they need to get back. They need to defend out of possession. It's very important that they are able to get up and down the pitch. Coming to the front 2, years ago, there was a vogue, a fashion to have a big man and a smaller man that sort of maybe drift in the pocket, get in that hole to link play up. It might be even that the ball comes from back to front and the big man looks to help it on and the smaller man looks to run in behind. So in terms of stature, physicality, invariably you might get a big one and a little one who's a little bit more mobile. Very rare to have 2 big front players, and very rare to have 2 little ones. So it's flexible. So there, if you like, are the profiles and the numbering system for me on a 4-4-2. Really, really important. So now I'm going to talk about the advantages and disadvantages, because every system to me has advantages and disadvantages. And like I said, the system itself does not win or lose games. It is the players within that. And as a coach, we have a responsibility to make sure and to be able to communicate what we require from our players. So what are the obvious advantages? Well, if you want to play a more direct style, and we have evolved, and everybody talks about playing from the back and playing through the thirds. Fantastic. This style is primarily used by some big sides, and when you look in Spain, Atletico Madrid have used it. Lately, I've seen teams, Southampton use it. I've seen Leicester go from 4-3-3 to 4-4-2. So teams morph. They change from one system to another. And even this 4-4-2 out of possession, I'm going to show you ways of where we defend high up the pitch and early and try and press the ball that we'll play a front two. When we play deeper, then it morphs, and it might answer Mark Benterman's question about dropping one back. But I'll show examples of that. For me, all systems morph. They're not rigid, but they must understand the players, what's expected from them. So the advantages, 4-4-2. We can play direct from back to front. And because we've got players that we could push out the pitch, and I'll just put a couple of pictures on, very simple ones. If we get the ball forward, whether it's because that's our style or my philosophy, it's really important that, you know, if we've got quick players and they hold a high line and we want to go in behind, like we said, we can get in behind them. But if the other team drop off and we just want to be direct anyway, we've got people as we play up there can gamble and get in behind. So from a point of view of chasing a game or your style, or I've seen a lot of non-league sides where the methodology is we're not going to play, we're more dangerous with the ball than without it, we're going to just hit long balls. For me, there's a difference between being direct and just smashing the ball. And I was lucky enough to work with John Beck, the Cambridge United manager, Preston North End, one of the most successful managers in England. I've worked with him in Coach Ed, become a very good friend of mine. And he was renowned for playing 4-4-2, direct. His players knowing what they was doing. I think he got 7 promotions. So, you know, for me, working with John was an honour and a privilege because we was very similar in how we work in terms of very meticulous, the detail. Your job is this, not just one of you sits, one goes on, very much like, and I'll go through that in a minute, when the ball's here, you sit, you go on. So there's the advantages for me. It can be direct. You can get more numbers up the pitch. Someone asked me, you can play your wide players narrow. If we want to hit long diagonal balls in to get players around it, who am I to tell anyone how to play the game of football? And someone's mentioned about having someone big to help it on for someone smaller to go in behind. That's up to you. You make the rules up and the responsibilities for your players. But the bigger picture for me is it's conducive to being direct. It's conducive to winning second balls and bits and pieces if you want to play that one. Now, disadvantages, and there's always the disadvantages. Obviously, when you're out of possession, we talk about narrowing off. But the obvious thing is you could say, well, we've only got 2 central midfield players. Well, if you're organised, you can play your wide players narrow and you've got 4 in there. Yeah, so it's not a problem. And like I said, so some people, if you're going to not be well organised and you're going to be spaced out, then there's going to be opportunities to play through you. And if you're spaced out in terms of the units, the depth of the units, then they're going to play through you. So they're obvious things. And for me, you're not going to do that. You're going to be organised and you're going to be compact. So you might say we're outnumbered in midfield, and I'm going to show an example of when I do our slides about playing against 4-3-3, because I prefer playing 4-3-3 with 1 holding midfield player and 2 advanced. And you might say we're outnumbered in here. And then I talk about, or maybe dropping 1 in here if we're defending deeper, just to negate that and even up the numbers. Okay. So that's the bigger picture for me, 4-4-2, the advantages and disadvantages. I don't know if anyone's got any questions. I only want at this stage 2 or 3 at the most. If you've got a question on the numbering system, the profiling, or the advantage or disadvantage, anybody got a burning question to ask me now, please? Yes, Thomas Dodds.
Yes, sir. I was just curious why you have 5 and 6 as your mid. Not a big deal. I'm just curious because I always would put 4 or 5 there, and 6 would be up in the midfield. You just picked, not a big deal, I know, but.
Thomas, thank you for your question. You're obviously ringing from the States. Traditionally, in our country, 5 and 6 have always been the central defenders. When I've worked in Holland, they're very much, you know, they talk about the 4 and the 5 at the back, the 6 and an 8 if they play 4-4-2. If they play 4-3-3, that's their numbering system. So I said at the start of the presentation, and you acknowledged it, it's not a big issue. It's just something that within the FA, and I've worked in the FA for a number of years now, that predominantly we do that. Some people say, well, they have squad numbers. Hopefully that answers your question. It's not an issue. It doesn't matter what numbers you are. It's just that when I work, I like to number the players and the bibs. So we talk about a relationship between the 5 and the 6, 2 and the 5, 6 and 3. Yeah. Hope that answers your question.
It's interesting because in the States, our numbers are different. We go 4 or 5 are the center halves.
Yeah, no, that's not a problem. I get that. And like I said, I make sure I wear numbers. And if I was working in the States, I haven't been to the States for many years. My friend who I've mentored is a very good friend of mine, Anthony Hudson. He's your under-20 national manager. So when Anthony did his coaching badge with me, we talked about the numbers and I've done some stuff with him. I don't know if that's a national thing. I'll check with Anthony. Yeah, not a problem. 2, 4, 5. Yeah, 3, and then 6 and 8 in midfield.
Okay.
Thanks for your question, Thomas. Anyone else got a question just on that or anything before we move on? Good, guys. So I'm going to move on. So 4-4-2. Used to play it a lot. So when I got my first position as a young player, I was this little wiry, skinny little fullback whose job was to get crosses in. So I'm going to talk about a bit about the roles and responsibilities for me within the system and the way the game is played. So I'm just trying to move them up the pitch to make it proportionately. What do I see? What do I see? Well, what we've got to be better at, and I'll talk about it later, is everybody now is obsessed in England. And I went and watched a game the other night, under 23 game. Lucky enough to get out and about, and I went and watched West Ham and Southampton under 23s. The game now in this country has become very much pass for the sake of it. And what we've got to teach players is to prioritise. So a forward pass that goes in here and gets us in is better than one that goes in here playing our back to goal. By the same token, a pass in here is better than playing out there. So for me, we have to educate our players from an early stage, even if they haven't got the capability of going from back to front, to teach them, can I think forward? Not that they can do it, but can they think forward? So for me, in behind or beyond, beyond to run onto. There's beyond just to turn people round and take a breather, but there's beyond to run onto. There's a long ball to go up to help on. So we're differentiating now. We're talking coach Ed, we're talking the game. Beyond to turn people round, beyond to run onto, up to help on, into feet to secure. So it's just priorities. Can we play into our front unit? Can we play into our midfield unit, etc., etc.? So you have a philosophy, but if we're honest, everyone says, I want to play out from the back, I want to teach in the game. The bottom line is recognising the opponents. If the opponents, and I'll put them on in a minute, all push up, for me as a coach educator and someone who wants to win football matches when you're in that position, and you need to differentiate between developing young players and frontline winning matches. But there comes a time in the development of players, we have to teach them what's right. So we might all have different versions of what we think is right. But if you watch the best teams in the world, and Man City still do it, if our keeper picks out from a goalkeeper and it's on to do that. So it's about recognising how to play through the thirds when we have to, but educating people to say, can we get in behind them? So if the space is in behind, that's where you need to play, particularly when you've got a morph system 4-4-2 that morphs into 4-2-4 where people get beyond. Common sense for me. If the other team drop off and we can't get behind them because there's not much space, you play up to people again. And then if them lines are blocked, we play into midfield. Again, if they drop off, then it comes from the back. So there's not a wrong and right way of playing, but I can tell you from a defensive point of view, when teams are very direct, it's very hard to play against. And if you don't get in behind them, but you have an aerial battle and you don't win the flick on and the ball comes back, you win the second balls. Now, so we said about the roles and responsibilities of players. When it's at the back, we talk about prioritising. For me, this is what I want to see. I want to see width created from our fullback, and you've got to have a methodology. And people say to me, yeah, but you can do what you like. You can, but you don't need chaos. When you're playing with the first team, you need to know your players are singing from the same hymn sheet. So for me, it's very simple. The players around the ball support short, and my nearest central midfield player doesn't get in line with the ball, because I see it all the time in the Premier League. 4s and 8s want to come and get the ball off the centre half. Well, what's the point of doing that? These need to break lines, and at the moment, I haven't put any opponents on. So these people, when the 5's got it, the 2 needs to support wide. Yeah, he knows he's got someone outside him. I don't want the 4 getting in where we want to play, because if we educate our players to play forward, we need to create space. Again, the principles of play. Now, 7s can hog the touchline. There's nothing wrong with coming in if there's space to come into, particularly in a 4-4-2 system. But if we talk about coaching and supporting around the ball, which includes the goalkeeper, then we start to talk about away from the ball. So if we want to go direct, we need our 9 to stay high, because we create this space in here. Do we create it for the 7 to come in and exploit it and receive it? Or the 4 pulls away, do we create space just to roll it into the 9? Do we create it to travel with it? And then if we do, we get a bit of security and rotation. But the big picture for me is make the big pitch, push the front players on, create this space in here. That most important shape for me is the diamond, whatever system you play, because it gives you width and depth and will allow you to penetrate. Whether you penetrate by being direct will depend on your opponents. And if they narrow, and I'll put players on soon, if you can't play through or over, you play around. It's very simple. And this is where I talk about the most important rondo for me is a 4-4-2 rondo, that one. So we teach our players, and we just take them 4. If you do that, you do that. If they do that, you do that. Now, constantly players are going to move, and it might be a combination of moving people before we actually get it up to the next unit. Don't want to get too much into that, but the thoughts are support around the ball, yeah, away from the ball. Now, these become important, but they're important because of the next pass. So if we are able to get the nearest central midfield player to support it on the inside, not in the way, because in the end, it just gets in there and bounces back. So for me, central midfield drops in, furthest centre midfield player stays away, because then when it's played in here, if we can, this player is more likely to link because you haven't got a 10 in there. So if you want to play through the thirds, you get your little up, back, and through. So you've got these players now. These players might come and get the ball. But what we're saying is once it goes into that furthest players forward, particularly when there's spacing behind, have we now got players linking up? So as that ball goes in there, he's linking up, we're linking up. These are narrowing off because we talk about transition. If we did lose it, we've now got security in here. We're not wide, we're not expansive. So when it goes into that furthest player forward, we've got an up, we've got a back, we've got a through, up, back, through. So we need our 7 and 11s to recognise that they're the players when it goes up to the front 2 that get beyond. If we've got space in here, our 9, our 10 is more likely to go in behind. As we develop and get higher up the pitch, if that was to happen, and I'll show examples later, then there's no space to run in behind, then obviously the 10 will pull away. But if you establish rules and expectations, if you look at it, nearest player support on and around it, furthest ones go away, but as the ball travels, they link. So now, once we get higher up the pitch, if you just get into that, and they've been educated to do the same thing, and I'll just take those players, as it gets up the pitch, the rules are no different. Nearest central midfield player would support, furthest one stays away. As the ball goes in there, we're looking to link. That's when you get your combinations and 7s coming inside, 2s on the overlap, whatever. But the rules are, on this side of the pitch, the relationships are nearest player support. The furthest players are the ones that give us pictures, give us targets to run. So when it goes in there, if our 10's pulled away, our 8 recognises there's space in between and gets beyond. If the ball, front 2 decide to play close together for little combinations, then our 8 gets beyond and our 11 gets beyond. So for me, we're talking about educating players what their roles and responsibilities are, and that includes furthest ones away, don't get involved. You are for the next ball, the second ball. You're for the target, because the further away from the ball you are, the less likely you are to be marked, and the more chance of the opponents who are furthest away switching off and ball watching. Okay, so just replicate that on this side. Briefly, if the ball's on this side of the pitch, wherever it is, so we put it in a wider position now, the 4 on this side would be supporting the 2. It's the 8. So if it's in a wide position, yep, again, it's just replicated that the 8 is the link player and the 6. So if we was to lose it in this congested area, if the other team were compact, we have security. In transition, when we lose it, we're vulnerable if we're spread out. So as the ball is on that side of the pitch and we're looking to play forward, this is our link. These are our links. And like I said, when it's wide, you'll always get a front player, whatever side it is, coming to link it. Yeah. So if it comes short, we've got someone who can run in behind. The higher up the pitch we go, there's no space to run in behind. The furthest players will pull away for that diagonal pass. So in a nutshell, in possession, summarising, I want wingers wide because that allows our 9, when it's on the right-hand side, to support it. And it might be that we get one then where we go around the corner. But if it can't go around the corner, we've already established, as that ball's gone up there, that there's going to be players on the front foot linking. And when that comes back, we need somebody to go beyond the 9. Whether it's the 10, whether it's the 7, and it's on this side of the pitch, that's what we need. And vice versa on the other side. So that's my big picture for supporting the ball. When it's central, we talked about it wide. When it's central, I think it's really important that if you'll always get a midfield player that wants to come in there. That's not a problem. And one will be more comfortable than the other one. What I don't advocate is, as they get older, they become specialists. If you're teaching young players, I say when it's on this side, teach the 4 to support and link up, and the 8 to stay away and look forward to make forward runs. As they get older, it might be the 4 goes and picks the ball up both sides because the 8 profile is he likes getting beyond and running. That's not a problem. But when you're teaching the game with younger players, for me, I think it's important they know how to link it up. They know when to stay away and make them forward runs. Now, that's my rules. Now, I'm not saying it's the only way. I'm not saying, but what it does give players is consistency. When it's on your side and I shout, link, link, I won't have to coach them because I've coached them, but they know who's going to link. They know who's going to link the play. If I say open up, they know to create space. Yeah. And if a centre half was marking, then you can miss them out because we know that there's going to be people that recognise these pictures and are willing to run beyond. And for me, it's because they've been coached and educated and they're not playing off the cuff. You know, you can have freedom and let them run all over the place. For me, it doesn't work. For me, the commentators are obsessed now with saying, oh, Man City do this, and they're all over the place. No, they're not. No, they're not. There are certain players that have got license to do that, but they're very, very structured. And because there's a lot of free-flying movement from the front three often, and sometimes they'll play narrow, sometimes they'll play wide. But in Man City's different system altogether, the two central midfield players, if they play like that, they run in behind in them spaces, and if they play narrow, they've got license to make these runs. So sometimes these commentators hear certain things, and they hear people say about how much rotation there is in the game and how much this, and I'm looking and going, no, they're more structured than any other team. So just on that then, no opponents on there. If you've got a question, if you look at the diagram now that Mauricio's putting up, I think you'll see Mauricio, and there's the numbers. We've gone through the profiling and the roles of the responsibility of those players, and feel free to take pictures of them, but they're going to be on the YouTube channel. If you move on to the next diagram, please, Mauricio.
Colin, just 1 second. Someone is asking, why is the numbering system important? I think you answered the question before.
Yeah, the numbering system for me is, it doesn't matter how you number them up. It's important when we talk about relationships. So if we talk about a goal being conceded and ultimately it goes in here, I know we were talking about in possession, I've gone straight to, there's relationships between the 2 and the 5. So even in possession, the 5 needs to know that the 2's outside him. So whether you number him number 4 and him number 2, doesn't matter. As long as you know. So there's relationships. So if you get what you practice, so practice the game. So I'm a stickler for when we do practices, if it's a small-sided practice or whatever, the players must wear the number that corresponds to that position. That's a give me for me. That's a non-negotiable. And when I work on Coach Ed, and players give me session plans and they put X and Y's, I go, listen, you can use X and Y's, but I've never seen a player with an X or Y on his back of his shirt. Okay? So for me, if I'm training to be a coach and I want to develop, if a coach says to me, well, it doesn't matter, detail is everything. So how you number them up is up to you. I put the lower numbers on the right. If you look, 5 is lower than 6. Yeah. 2 and 7 are lower than 3, 11. 9 and 10. Doesn't mean to say they can't rotate and move and they'll find themselves in different positions. It's just an understanding, call it an obsession, call it attention to detail. That's what I'd rather call it. Any more questions on that? Mauricio, can you put the next slide on, please? So we've talked about the profiles of players, and we talked about what they do, who links, who stays away.
Yeah, Colin, there is another question. They say that some players, when they play the matches, they go different numbers.
Yeah, they can play different numbers, but it's not get too obsessed with the numbers. It's just my way of saying is, whatever numbers you want to have, put them players together. You're going to do crossing and finishing practices. Make sure you replicate this if you're doing it on the right side. If you're doing it on the left side, so whatever numbers you are, it's just becoming familiar. And you can turn around and say, what's the 4's job when the 5's got the ball and there's no pressure? Yeah, you see it in the Premier League, they come and get the ball for them. Why? I don't understand it. Can we not trust this 4, 5 in possession to do that? For me, a 4 needs to break a line. So if the other team drop off, and that's their front players, what's the point of doing that and come and getting the ball? He's not a quarterback. Yeah, can he not pass? So we need to talk about breaking lines. So now, if he gets the ball, we've broke a line. Yeah, we've penetrated. We're playing through the thirds, whatever terminology you want to use. But no, other teams drop off, and I see it in the Premier League. I'm thinking these are household names who are coaches of them, supposedly top elite coaches, come in and get the ball, and I'm going, why? So now, when you do that, the players you've got in advance of the ball become less. So it becomes negative. So they'll talk about great midfield players we've got that never give the ball away, but all they ever do is that. So I'm saying to you, have a look how many times you watch the Premier League, and I'll name no teams, and I won't even name national countries, but you watch how many times we play, and we get, which annoys me even more if you play a back three. So you'll have a back three playing, someone comes and gets the ball off their feet. So if you've got a back three, yeah, you've only got now back three, one person comes and gets the ball, yeah, that's what you've got in effect. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You've only got 6 players in advance of the ball. Yeah, whereas if you've got 2 central, it just doesn't make sense numerically. And we wonder why teams don't go forward and they don't penetrate and they don't hurt. So it's a pet hate of mine to see that. Moving on, I'm conscious of time, Mauricio. Just show the next slides. So again, we've just talked about, there's the picture on the screen. It's really important that, you know, we put the 5 and we just said the 4 is to clear space. Yeah, 8 is pulling away to link up. But we've created that space in there and we're looking at the 9 to come in and get it, 10 to run in behind, maybe the 11 to come in and get it or run in behind. There's the options, the variety. And when it does go forward, we talk about security and players narrowing off. So if we do lose it, we've got that transition. So we've got players away from the ball, in advance of the ball, are looking to get forward. We've got players behind the ball that if this 5 advances, we've got security. If he or she runs out, the 4 takes a place, we've got security. So that transitional period is a moment is really important. And that, what we've just showed you, is just replicated in that slide. Have you got the next slide, please, Mauricio? So now we actually talk about putting opponents on there, but sometimes if I put the opponents on there, it confuses it. So now, why I've done it without opponents, and it would be lovely to play a game without opponents, but what we've done now is, if you look, we've said about playing against a 4-3-3, and that's primarily what it would look like. And that's how I number up my 4-3-3 system if you look at my presentations. So just to make it pretty simple, yeah, if you look at that slide there, that replicates this sort of picture. So our 4, we play 4-4-2 and we push our wide players on, yeah, that's what it looks like. So they have a spare player in midfield, and what we're trying to do is create space to try and get the 9 in. But obviously the 4 is going to get across there to stop it going in there. And that's why we talked about having a variety where the 7 maybe come inside to get on the ball. Not always a good thing, but it's a variety. And then that's when we can talk about, if we want to be direct and we can't play into, yeah, we might want to play beyond for runners, yeah, to get in between, or we might play up to help it on to get in behind. Okay, can you just go revisit that slide, please, Mauricio? So there's your variety. Yeah, 7 look to come in the hole. 9 create space by coming short. If he can't go in, we miss him out. And them areas of white is where the space is, and that's the areas we're trying to penetrate. From your front 4, 7, 9, 10, do you have a preference on the side of the defender they take? Well, obviously, I want them to be able to run down the sides of people, but your job is to pin them. As long as you get your body in front, the opponents will want to probably mark on the outside. So it's a good question. But like I said, sometimes if you pull off of people, if you pull away from people, you give them a problem, because the 5 now wants to be focused on this. Yeah. If you get higher up the pitch and you pull away from people, and we look at the 5 and 6, what you do is you give the 5 a problem. And if he comes with you because you pull off of him, I'm only talking about the 9, then you leave space for the 8 to go through. If you play close together, you leave space for the 11 to run into, especially if the 11 stays wide. But the 8 has got to be the clever one. So if the front two play close together, he can run beyond. If they play far apart, he runs in between. And that all comes from establishing who supports on and around, what your job is when you're away from the ball. You need to have that detail. You need to coach the players. Front two play close together, two centre halves play together, there's your space. If you make that run and you're not followed because there's a big hole, you're in. If the fullback gets round, then obviously, and you're higher up the pitch, you've got that diagonal. All hypothetical, but there's got to be a rationale behind, and that's why I didn't put my players on the pitch of their roles and responsibilities. No, you're not just running around. You're not just running where you want to run. You have to see the pictures, and we have to know. Maurizio, just go back. Is that the final slide with in possession? It's not, is it?
No.
Right. So if you look at the next one, is again, this is the passing priorities. Like we said at the start, we outlined what the priorities are. Can we get behind our opponents? I don't care if you're Barcelona, Manchester City, Doncaster Rovers, the dog or duck. If you educate players the right way, you need to get behind them to score. It's not the only way of scoring, because if they drop off and you can't get behind them, then you can play up to people. But ultimately, you can shoot past them. But we have to understand the game as coaches and as players. Would you rather play against Vardy, who's going to run in behind you, or would you play into a front player that always wants to come short? Always comes short. At my age, I could play against someone that always comes short. But once someone runs down the side of you and runs behind you, that's a problem. And central defenders and fullbacks don't like people that run beyond them and short. So you have to have a variety and mix it up. And just go revisit that slide. And for me, what I don't think we're very good at in this country is actually educating people to say, people would say to me, oh, it's a long ball. And is it the right ball? If the other team is silly enough to play a high line and you can play in behind them, then that ball beyond, yeah, is it a ball beyond to get someone to run onto? Is a great ball, yeah. It might be where you're under pressure and you're just knocking it off the pitch to relieve the pressure. There's different circumstances. Or are you just smashing straight balls, yeah? Or are you actually thinking about your play and prioritising your passing? Mark, Southampton play for second balls with wide man coming into 4-2-2. How important is this? Well, again, like we said, just on Mark's point, if you, like we said, it can be used as a tactic. John Beck was very good at it and his teams. If you play direct, if you overhit a straight ball, goes through to the goalkeeper. If you hit diagonal passes, so let's just say on the right, okay, and it runs out of play, they've got a throw on, we can all push in there. So it's a tactic. It is part of a strategy. But even if you play straight balls but don't overhit them, yeah, and you loft them, then they can't get much, even if the opponents win the first ball. Again, if you play up to people, we've got people running on beyond, like we said, the 7, the 9, the 2 running on beyond. Even if they win the ball, you've got your midfield players trying to win the second ball. Coming back to Mark's question, if you play your 7 and 11 narrow, yeah, like that, and you might even say behind them because they say it's like a 4-2-2. Yeah, that's up to you. It's a strategy, and it's something that Southampton have been very successful on. It's not my way, but I'm certainly, you know, who am I to question?
Colin, that's sorry, mate, to interrupt.
Sorry.
With the centre half, they do it at the centre halves, don't they? With the fullbacks, they give you width. It's really different. It's two types of tactical knowledge with the players, with centre half in possession and a fullback in possession.
Yeah, I think there's you look at your players' profiles, what are their attributes? Why do I recruit the players I do? Why am I playing this fullback today or this winger? Because we're playing this team. And that's the great thing about the high level, because you'll have people that have watched and analysed the opponents. You might know that their fullback's a little bit weak. You might look at certain traits of the opponents and say, that's where we're going to win that game. They've got two central defenders that are a little bit milky. They're not brave. We're going to put it in there. We're going to have a battle. We're going to have a row. And it might be done. I've got some cultured players in there who can have a scrap as well. So what you do is down to you. And like I said, that's what makes the game interesting. You know, I'm not an expert in that. All I'm saying is, whatever you play system, you have to have a methodology behind it. You have to have a process of what you're trying to do and how you're going to achieve that. And preparation is key. And if you always do the same thing, it's not always going to work. So you have to be flexible. Systems might morph, and we'll show that in a minute. Any more things on in possession? Because what I haven't spent too much time on combination and all that, because I stated at the start that for me, 4-4-2, you can play from the back. But if you've got bodies high up the pitch, whether you play them narrow and you play it in there to have a fight, or whether they narrow off and you play round them, but it's mainly talking about the bigger picture. If you look at some of my other presentations, the detail, you know, is really important. Someone just mentioned about the rondo. The rondo is really important practice if you do it right and you coach it. And whatever system you play for me, the principles of play remain the same. And that is creating space, movement, support in order to penetrate, and how creative you are in able to do that. So if you play 4-4-2, for me, that's the shape that you need when the ball's at the force feet. Yeah, massively important. When the goalkeeper's got it, it's revisit it. Yeah, there's your diamond. One of them drops in there. There's your diamond. Yeah, and it's in there. Okay, it's a little bit more difficult with this system, but like we said, ultimately, if your 7 comes inside, there's a diamond. Yeah, so you need that. If you didn't have him out there, it's difficult. So what I'm saying is, wherever the ball is, yeah, we need to create diamonds on the pitch. And I've heard coaches shout diamonds, which is rubbish. But well, we know that he supports inside, he supports outside. Nearest front player comes short. You've got that. So if they narrow off and you can't play through, you play around. And it might be a combination where we have to go in there to draw him in to go in there. And you might have to be more patient where you can't go in there. You draw him in, he comes in here, it comes back to you, can't play in here. And you have to be patient. So them practices are really important. And for me, when you deliver them rondos or 4v2s, it's important you relate it to the game on the pitch. Someone just said an interesting point about what I've just mentioned. So hopefully there's a philosophy, or there's a process of educating your own players in possession. And for me, I've talked to the bigger detail and shown some little detail about nearest, stay away, open up, whatever. Obviously, my practice would facilitate that on a smaller scale. Whether I did some, because I only had enough players to do it on one side, I would set that up on this side of the pitch, or vice versa. I'd set it up centrally. But the higher level you go, the more chance you've got 11v11. And I love coaching 11v11. And there's a lot of coaches in the Premier League and the Football League that don't do too much 11v11. And that's from players that have played with them, and that's from watching them. I've seen some real good coaches who work on 11v11, and they've been chastised as being poor coaches. And I've looked at them and I've gone, do you know what? He's a good coach. He's a fantastic coach. And Roy Hodgson, for me, particularly out of possession, he's one of our best coaches. So that's my little interpretation on 4-4-2 in possession. It's really important that you don't get obsessed with systems, that you stick to the fundamentals, the principles of play, creating space, but again, prioritising where people play. So if you take the next slide, Mauricio, because we talk about getting higher up the pitch now. So that was done from the rear third, but now we talk about when we get up the pitch, now, it's hard to do this proportionately to the players. The best position to be is getting into this middle third unopposed. And the reason that is because you have options of going in behind, particularly now as a lot of teams want to play a high line. The danger of playing a high line and not having no pressure on the ball is you are able to play in behind, beyond. Yeah. And that diagram there just shows that, like we've said, if you can play in beyond, that's great. Yeah. If we can get high up the pitch so we can get players to run down the sides of the centre halves, you've got more options in that mid-third. And that is you can go in behind, but if the other team drop off, ultimately what we're trying to do is to play through and penetrate. So if you was on the ball and you saw that picture, you're not going to win any balls in behind. But what you will do is say, well, I can't play in behind, but we need to play into people. And if the 4 comes in there, we can't play in there. So the 4's job, nearest one, is to create space. Yeah, pull away, furthest centre mid. Same rules, same thing further up. And that is we're trying to play into 9's feet. Now, if we can't play into 9's feet because they've got an extra player in midfield and they screen that, that's where your 7 becomes important, where he just comes and drifts into that little pocket there. So once that 7 comes in to maybe pick that ball up in that space, yeah, again, what does that leave? Well, it leaves potentially the space for that fullback to go in there. Now, you'll see Man City who don't play this system. If he stays wide, yeah, that's what you're getting now. Fullback's going in now. And if he doesn't and he drives on, then there's just a little bit of rotation. But what we've got to learn to do is nearest front player supports, second one stays away. And you've got that option there is, again, like we said, if he supports and links, furthest players can make forward runs. If they play close together, we've said, get in between. Yeah, 11, does he go round the back or does he come in there? But we're trying to give problems, and whilst the ball's on this side of the pitch, the players furthest away from the ball on the opponents tend to switch off. And that's why our most important players for me is when we're building up possession on one side of the pitch, is those furthest away from the ball to give us options. Options are only created by those in advance to the ball. If he comes in there, spaces between them. If he stays away, spaces in between the front 2. And it's just getting players to recognise that, but being able to sow them seeds to them. Mauricio, last slide on the in possession. So now we've dropped them right off. We're up this end of the pitch. Again, the higher up the pitch you get, and teams do play with deep blocks now, and I'll just set it up just to have a little look, and I'll put the ball at the right side, his central defender, is again, probably not a lot of space to go beyond. If there is, we can play on people's shoulders and get down the sides of them, fantastic, yeah? But what you're saying, when you get higher up the pitch, you've got to be patient. Can you get in beyond? Not a lot of space, probably not. That's when you might go into, still difficult. And that's when you get to that, where you get to that area where you're going up to. So you're going for them diags. If you can go a diag in behind, great. If you can't, and it's contested when it goes up there, you've got up to head it back. If they win the header, then you're looking to win the second balls. You're 3 and 8. So it's all about them anticipation areas. And if you look at the diagram, everything I said is there, because I've continually said your role is to support inside. Your role is to support outside. Your support wide or drop in. You're the nearest one to link it up. You stay away. Do you go in between or do you go on the outside of the 10? Yeah? Away, if we go diagonal, is second ball. Just put that slide up again, Mauricio, so they can have a look. Again, and nothing contradicts. I'm not bright enough to do anything other than keep it simple. And if you look at it, there's your priorities, your passing. A is in behind, B is up to, or beyond. So if you look behind But the 6 and 3, if the ball goes on the diagonal to the 11 or the 10, the 3 gets on the front foot. If he comes out and wins the second ball, he wins it. If it comes out, he can hit one of them technical fouls and stop people turning from out of possession to in possession and counter-attacking you. So it's really important that your players, whatever system you play, are I won't use the word drilled. They're well disciplined. They understand what their roles and responsibilities are, rather than just going up and playing off the cuff. So that concludes the in possession side for me, and I would do a lot of practice on that's the shape. The pattern is really important of attacking in wide areas. What's your role? And I'll do it central as well. So that's the bigger picture. The players have to understand who links, who stays away, who makes forward runs, and then you sow the seeds and you actually work on the patterns. There's the shape. The pattern is you play it overlap, come inside, whatever. And it's really important you do that. Refreshing to you, talk about the principles of play. That comes from Steve Lilly. Yeah, the principles of play, if you ask players when they come on their coaching badge and they come on a B license, and I say to them, guys, little reminder, what are the principles of play? And they come out with things like passing, running with the ball, heading, dribbling. And I'm saying, no. And I have a reminder session. And I say to them, think of it this, we work from top to down. There's 4 moments in the game: in possession, out possession, transition from in to out and out to in. That's the big picture. Then you have the principles of play. What are the principles of play? In possession. So we talk about creating space as an individual stroke unit, as a team, spreading out. Then we talk about movement, support. And the reason you're going to move and support is to create space to penetrate and play through. So there's your 4. Create space, movement, support, to penetrate. And your last one is, well, we might have to be creative and we might have to do a little trick, or we might have to lend it someone to move someone to get that pass in. That's really important. So they're the principles of play. Make sure if you're doing your coaching, it doesn't matter what system you play, you must know your principles of play, because if you don't know your principles of play, I refer it to being like an English teacher not knowing the alphabet. Now, some people might argue with that, and I'm just trying to chuck that out there and say, look, for me, if we're actually going to teach and be a good communicator, then surely we must be able to show them what that looks like, what support looks like, what movement is. And a rondo has all of them. A rondo has all of them. Any more questions on the in possession before I go to the out of possession? That was very thorough. That was longer than I thought, but like I said, it was. If you've got a question, unmute yourself and ask. Yes, if you've got a question on in possession, 442, yeah, unmute yourself. And I put a sub on. Any questions? Tom's just warming up now. He's just taking his jacket off. He's doing his hair.
Sorry, yeah. Well, I realised I've got my camera rolling. But anyway, I maybe it's not 100% related to the 1442, but I coach a 9-a-side team. So when you're talking about the 4 and the 8,
yeah,
making forward movements to run.
Yeah.
So we play an 8, 9, and a 10.
Yeah.
As a 3, it would be a 4-3-1 formation. What would
what formation do you play?
1-4-3-1.
Yeah.
So I've got that. When we're talking about getting the ball up to, who would be would the 8 and the 10 be looking to make movement?
That's up to you. How I would number, if you play that way, I would be tending to do that, because why I'll justify it is, no, you haven't got 2 front players, so this player is going to get lots of, and you could change it as well, but this player is going to get lots of hold-up play and play with their back to goal. But you could also sort of educate them when the ball's on this side of the pitch the players have got to make them forward runs is the furthest one away, and vice versa. When it's on this side of the pitch, that this one's 9 will always go and link both sides. The 7's going to give me width when it's on his side, and the 11 makes them forward runs. So that's hard work. And the 4 is constantly, if you like, creating space. So again, 11 giving us width, 9's going to mirror the ball and come in there. 7 is going to make them runs on beyond. Okay, that's what I would do, but it doesn't make it right. You can change that. So if you are going to scale your down, or you've got a format that you're going to next, try and think of what are the roles going to be at the next thing. How can I replicate that? And sometimes you might want to go, I'll swap it around, and I am going to go with a front 2, and I'll do that just to get them working as a front 2. One coming short, one going beyond, and you might even change it to have 2 in central midfield and 1 up top. So you've got to justify why you do it. I can't tell you you're wrong. I'm not saying you're wrong, but like I say, think about where they come from, where they go into. How can I set up something that's going to help them at that next stage of development? Okay. Don't want to go too much into other systems or formats. Thanks for your question. Going to get back on. Any more questions before we move on to out of possession with 4-4-2?
Yeah, Omar here.
Yes, Paul. Omar. No?
Yeah. Yeah, so I noticed you were talking mainly about, say, the ball, the right back and the left back create the support for the center back, right? Because you want to get the ball to go forward. That's support. So in this 4-4-2 situation that I see here, we want to get in and behind. That's what you were saying.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, so you have the 7 and 11 and the 2 central midfield. So yeah, my idea is when, say, the 5 get the ball and the 2 show the support, right? The ball comes to the 2. Now, so ideally, what I was thinking, so these 10 center midfield, 1 stay, 1 go, and I was thinking if the next center back could pick up that space of one of the central midfield, because I'm trying to create an overload.
Yeah, I think your questions, the wider it is, the easier it is to make. When the ball's central, balls usually go straight or you go diagonal. When they're wider, this is when the furthest player can come in that pocket. Right. What I wouldn't want to do is get that. And it's all about managing the game. So if you're 2-0 up, the way you made it is though you want him to go in there. I certainly don't want that. If I was 2-0 up, I'm saying, no, we're going to give security and we're going to do that. That depends where you are in your development as a coach. That depends what level of football you're working at. I'm not telling you what to do. You have to have a rationale of why you do something, justify it to yourself, own it, know it inside out, who does what, who goes where, why do they do it, sell it to your players, communicate to your players. You don't have to justify it to me. All I'm saying is I get coaches on various sites that I'm on. We play this system. It's the best system. We got more. And I'm like, do you know what? As soon as I hear them talk, I'm like, you've lost me. They complicate it. I'm not as bright to be able to do that. I keep it very simple. So if we can keep a complex game very simple, the reason it's complex, it's played through 360 degrees. We can play different systems. We have different profiles. We have opponents who play different. If you keep the principles the same, nearest player support, furthest players stay away, and we look to play forward and we look to link up. When it goes forward, can we get beyond? Simplify it. And I think novice coaches in particular, read a book, go online, watch someone, they know it inside out. And I'm saying is, listen, it takes years and years to own every system against every other system. True. Do you give the players rules to apply? Would you be more command style? I make no bones. Depends what level you're at. When you're working with young players, you need to guide them. You need to give them advice. You need to support them. When you go and play and you're playing for your job, Pep's not asking people what do they think. He's telling them. Yeah? If you've got to go and get results and your players want to go and do what they want to do, they'll get you the sack. You need to get them on your side. You need to say this works. If you have evidence to support that you've done this and you've done that, you want them to buy into it, but you ultimately have to be the boss. You're the boss. You make the decisions. This is how we're going to play. This is our strategy to win the game. This is our tactics. This is who's playing this week. It's down to you. And that's what I'm saying. It's very important. It's different from development football. I want them to play at the back, I want them to teach them how to do that, go in, bounce it, play round. Yeah, great. You do that, and you're looking at Brighton at the moment, who are struggling. They play nice, attractive, open football, but at the end of the day, you've got to get results. Yeah, and if you look at West Brom and you look at Newcastle, they're under pressure. They've got to get results. He's not going to go out and play nice football. Nice football is getting a result. So there's a difference. Don't mix up between development of players and teaching them the game, because you haven't got to win the game when you've got 10 and 11-year-olds. You're not Alex Ferguson. You're not Pep Guardiola. You're not Ollie. You know, you're someone who's teaching them the roles and responsibilities. So, guys, don't go away and be obsessed because I see it online. Barcelona do this session, so I'm going to do it with my 7-year-old. No, I see it. Real Madrid do this. We're going to do what Real Madrid do. Really? So, yeah. But, guys, I think we spent enough time out in possession. This, to me, now is really important because, for me, the game, if you're in a bad team and you're struggling, and if you look at West Brom, Sam's gone in there and he's gone, I've got to get results. And I've been into 2 teams in good levels of play in the National League at Maidstone who were conceding goals, getting beat, couldn't win. And you go in there and the manager says to me, I want to play 3-5-2. Why do you want to play 3-5-2? Well, I've got to get in the door, so I've got to give him what he wants. But in time, I want to change it. When you go into a side that's getting beat, and if you go and look at teams train, and I say it in grassroots, most of the time it's all in possession stuff. I went into a club that was third from bottom, just before Christmas in the National North League, who hadn't won for over 2 months, and we ended up 10th in the league at the end. Because all I worked on was, and we didn't play this system, defending. Admittedly, we did have Dwight Gow in the team, you know, when he was playing non-league, and we had quick players up front, but we had to work on stop conceding goals. We was playing teams away like Halifax, Altrincham, travelling a long way, who were fantastic teams, and we was beating them and keeping clean sheets. Why? Because all I worked on a Tuesday and Thursday was defending. Chucked in a few restarts. We played 4-3-3 and really got, you know, our players sitting in there and played on the counter-attack. So I think, you know, systems of play don't win games. It's what you educate your players to do. So if we're going to talk about out of possession now. So when I go and watch young teams, or I've coached teams that are quite 12, 13 and they haven't got possession, they play 4-4-2, you look on the pitch and that's what it'll look like. And again, if we go back to the principles of play, I've got wingers that say I'm a winger, and this is where we go wrong. We tell players they're wingers, they're forwards. I hear it from people on the telly. Everyone on the team is a defender. Everyone on the team is an attacker. So you'll even hear people say in the press, oh, he need, you know, he's this, he's that, she's this, she's that. Well, when we started in possession, we talked about these players having the ball, making decisions. People go, they're defenders. They're not when you got the ball, you're an attacker. And when you haven't got the ball, you're all defenders. So if we talk about the principles of play, and they are, and I'll recite them, and this is what I say about knowing them, it's about compactness. Compactness and concentration. So really, if one player gets beat, there's another player there. Yeah? So that's your compactness. Wide players tucking in, and front players dropping off. So we've got that. Now, if we talk about the principal plays, we're trying to deny and delay. We're denying space. We talk about being compact. We talk about pressing. We talk about control and restraint. So when we're in a shape, and we talk about that deep, that we don't fly in. We talk about pressure, cover, and balance. So the principles of play we need to know, and we need to know what they're like. So if we don't have an opposition and we set up like that, what are we saying to the opponents? If you want to smash it long, and whether he puts it over there and everybody goes over there, you see it. If you're going to smash it over there, then that's what you're going to get. So I'll put the ball in the middle of the pitch to basically say, a lot of teams play out now, we're compact, we're narrow, we know our roles. So I'm just going to put other players on the team that's going to give us a problem. Just the main ones that are going to give us a problem. Yeah. So when I do a lot of phase play, I think it's massively important that you set up the practice you're going to do. Okay? Now, for me, oh, what am I putting in there? They're the players that are going to give you a problem because you're allowing them to have that space. I don't care where anyone else goes, let them go out there. Because what we don't want is what we've said is that. Okay? So we are saying out of possession, 4-4-2. That's what I want. And I give my players rough guidelines. 7, be level with your nearest centre mid. Be level, you can always get out there and engage. And if it looks like it's going there, if it looks like it's going long and they're all tucked in, then you take that position up. If they're doing that, then you're starting to talking about just spacing off a bit, giving yourself less distance to travel. Because as we build it up, that's who you're playing against. That's who you're playing against. Yeah, so we build it up till we're going, that's who you're playing against. That's who you're playing against. So if we put a 4 and 8 on, that's who you're playing against. Yeah, you two are lucky because you're only playing against one player. You're playing out there. Yeah, you're playing against him, but you're going to sit in there. So where's the problem? The big problem is, yeah, and we're going to say they're playing 4-3-3. That's your problem. That's where you're outnumbered. Yeah. We said if you push them in, you leave too much space. So if you look at 4-4-2, big picture, we've got an overload here, 2v1. Yeah. 2's playing against 11, 3's playing against a 7, 11 playing against 2, 7 against 3, 10 against 5, yeah, 9 against 6. Okay. That's why we number them. So we say, you know you're playing against. Okay. Now the danger is they do that. Now we've got a problem. So we're going to go back to the big picture where we had no one on it. Forget the yellows on it. Can you just show the picture, Mauricio, please? So Mauricio's going to show the big picture of out of possession. There you go. So we put them whites on there to show you. That's what you want. When it's central, the ball's central, we want to be narrow. We want to be compact. The principles are played. So, Mourinho, you can control the game without the ball. And if they want to kick the ball long, we'll have a fight. We'll have a battle. And the hardest they can make it is to do that. But they won't because they're frightened. So there'll be long balls kicked. And if they want to go long, great. If it's coming diagonal, as the ball travels, we'll travel. So it's important that we're set up. We can control the game without it. So the danger what we've got is we need a strategy. And my strategy is when the ball is central, we want to force it wide. And when it's wide, if we can't win it, we're going to force it inside. That's my strategy. Whether it's this end of the pitch, whether it's in the middle of the pitch, and whether it's in our last third, I don't want to. I'm going to shove it inside 99% of the times. Played it in FA Trophy this season, opponent couldn't break us down and struggled. Yeah. If you sit deep, teams don't know what to do. But we talk about setting a trap, big picture strategy. If they want to kick it, great. We'll have a battle. And if they want to play out, we're trying to encourage them to play out. And lots of teams will do now. So we need to negate that. If we do that, they're going to get the 4 on the ball. So what we have to do is, like I've said, the big picture is Be compact. When it's central, force it wide. When it's wide, force it central. And I've just knocked up a few diagrams, or Mauricio has, and it's to talk you through my rationale of why we do that. So the danger is if they play 4-3-3, and that's why I made it 4-3-3. Didn't want to make it 4-2-3-1, because then that's even easier to stop them playing out, because everybody's numbered up. Yeah, I'll make it simple. That's easy. So it's having an understanding of, we know who's playing against who, we know what different systems are. So we want to get poses a problem. And our poses a problem is they're going to play 4-3-3. Yeah. So what we've got to do then is box clever. People drop off now. So I'll talk about it in a minute. I'm going to talk about players. Primarily, you get a right-footed centre-back and a left-footed centre-back. You've got great combination. Okay? We'll swap him over. Let's do detail. There's a 6. There's a 9. But if you notice, and we look at Man United, there's a fine example. Who plays there for Manchester United? A right-footed, left-sided centre-back.
It's Maguire, isn't it? Or
It is good. He's the one we want to get the ball. If I'm playing against Man United and I know you're playing out, I'm going to offset. I'm going to give you things you might have heard, you might not. If I offset and I start to go there, what centre half are you going to give it to? Now, Man United don't play 4-3-3, although some commentators will tell you because they play a 2 and a 1, that's 4-3-3. No, it's not. But let's just say we need to stop that centre midfield player getting the ball. If we want to offset and do that, if you was a team that doesn't lump it, where are you going to play? Especially if we just did that on our left side. They're going to play, we're going to give them that pass, especially if he's a right-footed centre-back, a left-sided right-footed player. Because once we drop off and make sure the 4 don't get it, and we offset, so we just do a little bit of that, box a bit clever. So we're going, where's your up pass? Well, we get a bit closer to Lingard, and you might go, Lingard's not that great on the ball. Yeah, but I'd rather have Harry Maguire on the ball. Or do you say, and this is sowing seeds here, this man who plays at right back is a great defender or a good defender. He's not that great in possession. So do you offset this way? Yeah. And you make it go to Lindelof. And then you go, give it to Bissaka, because he's not going to hurt us with his passing. No disrespect to him. I wouldn't mind being a few bob behind him. So what I'm saying is when you get into that level of the game, you're thinking personnel, you're thinking profiles, who actually plays there. Yeah? When you're the dog and duck, you don't know what they're like. You haven't got a scouting system. But at the higher levels, it's really quite easy or easier to know the players you're playing against. But look at the big picture. Compact, narrow here, we're happy here, sweep the keeper, all them things. So we know when it's high up the pitch and we're setting a trap, we're going to force it wide. We can't make them play wide, but I said there's ways we can encourage them to. Now, as that ball travels, the danger is what? He's right-footed. So he's probably going to play this short pass. So his job, yeah, let's put him a bit deeper, is to do that. Where's the danger now? In there. So this is where the front 2 have got to be smart. So the front 2 will be working like that. Yeah. And the same if it went on the other side. Can you keep it on this side? Can you come in there? Because we do not want this person getting on the ball in a 4-3-3 and hurting us. So we have to educate the front 2 to be smart. We have to educate them to go, right, it goes off there. Your job is same side. My instruction is same side. If you coach it, keep it on the same side of the pitch. So what does that tell number 7 now? Especially if he's a right-footed player. Yeah, he ain't going to get it out of his feet and knock it in there to smash one. He's going to take it away. Now you've got him on his weak left foot. You watch him struggle when he gets it on his left foot. So what does that tell you now? Oh, I know where that's going. He doesn't have to stay out with him, whereas before, yeah, because If he just runs in a straight line, he gets the ball in trouble. So he needs to block that off. He's coming from there to do that. But you can't, he might just come and get that. So this is where this one, as soon as that ball's gone this side, switch on. Don't go to sleep. Get engaged in there. Get around him. It might go in and bounce out. So what? It's still a centre half. But we're now trying to give him a problem. This person's going to show. These two midfield players can go tight. But if you look, yeah, whether he comes inside, that's what you've got to do. Keep it on this side of the pitch. It becomes simple, like we said about marking. Does this player mark on the outside? Yes, he does. Yeah. So if you had a left-footed player that can launch it, and we haven't got pressure on the ball, he's got to be on the outside to get in a race. What does he do? He's covering him. What does he do? He's offering some balance. The ball's on this side of the pitch. You don't need to be out there. Come inside. Once we know that ball can't, look at that picture. So we've now got compactness. The most important person is him to make it predictable. Yeah. He's a front player. Oh, I don't do defending. You are our most important defender. You have to cut that off. And that's the time that when that goes in there, he says, well, hold on, I'm the next important one because you can't get him on there. And he goes, I'm the next important one because that's where we want to keep it. So these front players are the most important defenders to make it predictable. And that's why teams that play out, you give yourself a chance if you're organised, yeah, to regain position. And we're looking to get on people's shoulders to step in and win it. How many times you see it now go in and people step in, or he gets tight up his backside, he can't turn. And then we're going towards the ball. We leave our player and we go towards him. And then as it goes back, you're in there. So you're practicing what you're going to do on a Saturday. Particularly if you're in lower non-league levels, Mark, yeah, or whoever. If you work on these areas, and what you get mostly is 8v6s. If you look at the big game, yeah, you get 8v6s. I've done it in my 4v3. That's what goes on all over the pitch, 8v6 in that half. If you look at that, that's 8v6. That's what you've got a lot of work on. If you're going to work on playing out, whatever system you play, generally you'll get 8v6. And that's why City at the best of getting out. So let's just get that back. So now we're looking to make play predictable. It's when it's in there, we're going to force it wide. But if it goes in there, if we don't press, we need to try and intercept, whatever. Once it goes in there, even if he plays forward, what we don't want to do, because most left backs are left footed, they'll boom it and turn you round. You're at non-left foot, turn them. Yeah, go big. Yeah, so that's why we need to mark on the outside when the ball's a long way away. That's why we need to mark on the outside so it does. But like we said, the players, if it goes wide, for me, and you can't get there, deny that long forward pass. Yeah, and then these players haven't got to worry about that. And the closer you get, where you're forcing it. Yeah, you're now forcing it inside, into line, down the line. And then these people are marking on outside shoulders to try and step in and win it. Marking on the outside shoulder. Yeah. Cover. This player, if the winger's wide, doesn't have to go out there with him. If the 7 is naive, then he doesn't know what to do. As long as he does that, he can now thinking about their 11 will obviously look to support in there. But the 2's like on the front foot. He can step in and win it. He can be on the outside shoulder to step in. Now, if you look at the shape of the whites, the front 2 are like that. One's high, one's deep. Yeah, and it would reverse if it was on the other side. One's high, one's deep. So they've got that sort of movement. Yeah, we'll put it on there. Now, look at the detail of the 4 midfield players. Depends how much pressure is on. If there's no pressure on the ball, the back 4 will be deeper. Because if you get high, space is in behind. No pressure on the ball. Look at the back 4 shape. The players on this side of the ball are obviously higher the players furthest away are deeper, but our left back is not going to be deeper than him or her, and he's not going to be level. He's going to be in front, because for me, he's the only player that can play offside and step up. Okay, so you look at that shape. Yeah. Now you look at the midfield shape. If we get pressure on the ball, then the back four can all start to do that. Now look at the shape of the midfield players. Yeah, that one is deeper than that one. This player is deeper than that one. This one is level. They're just guidelines. So if you're going to do shape and pattern work with your four, they talk about 2 banks of 4. That's what you got. Yeah. So that for me is setting a trap, trying to win it and get in there. So when it's high, yeah, we can be narrow. Your front two are a 4-4-2. As soon as the ball goes one side or the other, it becomes like a 4-5-1 or 4-2-3-1. Not them two, just do that. And again, it's just working on that shape. This one will be deeper and that one will be deeper and that one will be level. When it's on this side, deeper, this one will be deeper in him, he'll be deeper in him, and he'll be in there. So, Mauricio, if you look at the slides, if you can just show them the slide that are prepared, or you prepared. Yeah. So, we're all central. Look at them players, setting a trap, narrow, compact. Yeah. Now, if you look what happens next, and we've just shown it on there, the ball goes out, and we're saying that's where the space is. You can have that space because we're staying compact and central. Now the ball goes to that left-sided one. The 9 cuts off that pass. And it's obvious. Just roll it back, Mauricio. Just right, good. So that's the space we're giving them. So now if you look at the 10 moving across to negate the 4, look at the shape of the blue, 7, 4, 8 and 11. Look at the shape of the 2, 5, 6 and 3. They're obviously moving across that side of the pitch. So now when the ball travels, which is the next diagram, if the 7 can step in and win it, great, but he hasn't. But what that picture shows now is, can he cut the line off? If he can cut the line off, he's only going to come inside. And now you're seeing players go, right, okay, the 5, 6 and 3 might have to drop off if there's no pressure, but if the 7 can get him inside, have a look at the next picture. Is that the next picture? Go back to the picture.
Yeah.
Just take it back one. So once that ball, now give it to 3. Go back. So now what you're saying is we're now applying pressure. The 10 is coming across, because the 4 will try and link it up for them. Yeah. Now the closer the 7 gets, great. If there's no pressure, and look at the arrow of the blue 11. Is he going to go? Is that 3 going to take that risky ball? If he does, 11 engages him. And that's what you're trying to do. You're just trying to be organised with your side. Any questions on that happening at the front end of the pitch? Because to me, you can win the ball back. So many more teams now willing to play out. And you've just got to be organised. And if you really look at what's going on and you know that other teams do that, you rehearse it, you actually practice. Everybody shouts out on the pitch, press, 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 but you've got to know when to press, who you're pressing, who you're actually physically playing against. And for me, that's really important. So any questions on setting a trap, 4-4-2, playing against a team that's got an extra man in midfield? Anyone want to chuck a question in there?
Colin, I got a question. Go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yep, fire away.
All right. Yeah. So I noticed that you have the 9 and 10 kind of interchanging. Is there any reason why you wouldn't up front determine, let's say, one to kind of be more central and high, and then the other one reserve back? So you kind of, right? I'm sure there's a reason. I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah, good. Yeah, there's always a reason, and that's a great question. and there's a rationale behind it. Like what you're saying is, I said, put them like that, and the ball goes there, you do that, and vice versa. If it goes there, you do that, yeah? You're saying, well, why don't you have one, correct me if I'm wrong, his job is to do that, his job is to do that. Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly the question.
Good.
You got it.
So what I'm saying is, have a look at that. That's 44 yards wide. No way, if you put him on him, what you will give him is a chance. And this is where Maguire is very good. If you did that with Maguire, even though he's right forward, he would run and get out that pitch so high. Yeah, even Lindelof, he'd get out that pitch, and if you put him under pressure, they're facing forward, they'd turn you around. If you do that, they're Man United. Pride, we're going to play out. So what I'm saying is, you stop, and Man United don't play with a 1 and a 2, like we've said. If you do that with Man City, they'll do the same. Yeah, you could play 4-4-2 against them, and they're probably the best team out. That's why I'm saying is, no, you do that and go, right, you can have that ball out there. You're going to come in there and you're going to pick up whoever's playing in that 4 role. If it's Spanish lad or I'm trying to think of his name. Name's escaped me. Young lad. Who plays in there for Man City? Help me out. Rodri. So Rodri plays in there, or if it's Fernandinho, you know what I mean? You've got to stop them getting on the ball because they'll murder you. So you need to say, look, let's get the ball there. So that's my answer to your question. Don't play one marking him, because what they'll do, they'll just drive out. They'll drive out with the ball. Whereas this one, they're not going to drive because you're sitting narrow, stopping the 4 getting it, the holding midfield player. You're going, you can have it, goalkeeper. Now, they're Man United, Man City the sort to go, don't worry about that. We'll go into him and out there. But you take your chances. With the lesser teams, if you're organised at the lower levels and you do that and your 7's engaging, that's all the players you'll need to work on. The 11, the 9 and 10 and 7 and your 2 centre midfield. Look, you can set that up all day. You'll have your numbers in training, like I said. If you just take that, yeah, if you just take that as your practice and worked on that like a phase of play, you can win that ball back all day. Yeah, hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
Good man. Right, moving on. So what we've said now is we're going to now set up in the mid-third or deeper third. And this is the last clip, guys. So we're nearly there, and that's been a long session. But what I'm looking at there is now watching a deeper, dropping deep. So we're dropping off. Again, we know who we're playing against. Players know what will mess us up if there's movement. So I've just put that in there. So we've put the ball up higher here. So if you look at how we've set it up, just take it on to the next slide. So you've got 5 or 6 in good possession. Let's say we've got there. And what I'm trying to replicate is take them back. Even though this could be in the mid-third, I've moved it back to show you. So again, that shape. Whereas when they go higher up, we're playing there. Yeah. If we're going to let teams have the ball and we're going to play a mid-block or stroke deep block, it might even be the 4 gets on the ball. Yeah. For me, instead of having the front 2 like that, there comes a time where you're going to go, no. Yeah. And you've got that. And Crystal Palace are really good. Roy Hodgson, for me, is really good. Probably the best at doing this, even though, but he's coaching. You can see what he's actually trying to do, whereas others just go 2 banks and 4 and everyone's all over the place. So I'm saying is if you're going to have a mid-block, stroke deep block, it's where you go and engage them. It's your line of confrontation. It's are you going to get to the halfway line and have a mid-block and then go and engage them? If you do leave space behind. So what I'm trying to show is if you're going to have a deep block or a mid-block, where's your line of engagement? Where's the time you're going to go, we're dropping off no further? So if you look at that picture there, I'm saying again, if we're nice and compact and narrow, We've got our sweeper keeper, but there's no space behind, so it's going to be very difficult. Yeah. Players can run all over the place. Don't get dragged out. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to move you. Stay compact. And if a great centre midfield player wants to go and get the ball in there, let him go and get it. If he can hurt you from in the left back position, he must be a great player. So don't get dragged out, because that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to move you around. They're trying to just, you know, get you to open up and switch off and go with players. Space doesn't score goals, players do. And it's just a question for you guys out there. There's 4 things I ask people about defending. I asked them, do they know the principles of play? And I said, there's 4 things you defend against. What are they? And I'm asking the questions you now. You haven't got the ball, you're out of possession. What are the 4 things you are defending against? Anybody want to offer me one of them?
Like the opponent, the ball, space. Ball.
Good. The opponent, the ball, space, and the last one.
Goal.
Goal. Good answer. They're the 4 things you defend against. So what we're trying to say is if you all push up the pitch, you leave a lot of space behind. The closer you are to your goal, the less space there is, the more you're concerned about players. But you're always concerned about the ball, and you're always worried about the goal. So it gives you different problems. So I'm saying is space don't score goals, players do, but it's a problem. Because it's like, do I mark on the outside of players? Do I mark on the inside? You know, when I'm up the pitch, do I need to go tight with someone? Probably not. But as it develops towards our goal, then, you know, then priorities change. So what we're trying to say, and you'll see it in the slides, only a couple of slides. Again, I just want to show you something about, so instead of playing a flat 2, it was a bit like they started off flat and one did that and one did that, depending on what side it was. Well, if we're in there, particularly if they've got a spare player, you know, you could even have them flat, but you've got that bank of 5, bank of 4, whatever you want to call it, depending on how you set it up. And that detail is important. So for me, when it comes this side, we can force them wide by being there. If we're nice and compact and close together, it's harder to play through us and penetrate. Yeah. And if they want to put it in there, we've got bodies for second ball. So if they can't play through us because we're compact, we're again in control and we're trying to show them wide. Now, if you win it wide, great. But for me, I don't want players getting behind us and having that free ball in. I don't want a team, my strategy is, that's why you've got to show it inside for me. Because once they get behind you, they play in that corridor of uncertainty. They're playing behind you. If it's played in behind you, you're facing your own goal if you win it, own goals, etc. So my preference is when it goes wide, if we can't win it because we've not intercepted it or whatever, can we then force it inside? So if it goes to their 3, yeah, and their 11's wide, if we block that line off, and this is where Crystal Palace, you can make it so easy what they do. A lot of teams just go, no, it's going there, we're going to force it wide and we'll win it, and then invariably there's lots of crosses. Crystal Palace, it's very noticeable that the first player overcovers, if you like, goes too far, and then the fullback don't have to go out there. So we're not getting 1v1s, 2v2s, certainly not getting 2v1s against us in an overlap. It's now going, it's wide, and you're getting that shape. Look at the shape if you freeze it. The 2 don't have to go and engage the 11 if we block the line off. Yeah. The 4 will be deeper than the 7, stopping the ball going into the 9. The 8 will drop in now and probably be a little bit deeper or maybe level, and the 11's coming inside. The 9's not chasing it all the way, but he's staying away and he's stopping the big switch. And then the 10 might come across. So if you look at that line, pressure, cover, cover, balance, tucked in. Look at the rear line, there. Pressure, not pressure. He hasn't got to go out there, no need to. That player is deeper than that one. If we was higher up, that one would be deeper than that one will be just in front. Now, as we get higher up, we're not going to get that pressure, cover balance like some teams do. We're going to hold that box. And that's what we've got to be confident of doing. So when you get, if you're in that mid-third, you can have pressure, cover balance. Do not drop in that box. That's your holding line for me. How much pressure on the ball is how deep the cover is. If there's no pressure on the ball, this cover, yeah, can't be high. Let's put the players in there. Because if he's high, it can be played through him. If anything, he's got to be deep. He's got to be deeper than that player there. If he goes and marks the player that he's supposed to be, it goes in there and it gets penetrated. So he should be deeper than him. He should be deeper than him. He should be level. He should be coming across. Now, if there's pressure on the ball, it can go high. Why? Because it can't go in there. Yeah? So we get pressure on the ball. He reads the picture. And then we start to think about squeezing up because we know they're going to go out. And that's why that player stays away to stop the switch. And we try and keep it on this side of the pitch. That's my way. It's not everybody's way. It's not the only way. It is a way. And our players will be informed of what they've got to do. Again, if it breaks that line of the three, because it might be clever, it might go in there and play round the corner. We now engage. He has to go out there. And again, I want it to be forced inside. Because I guarantee you, there's more goals scored from crosses than there ever are from someone coming in here and putting one in the top bin. So do your stats. That's my philosophy of showing it inside. I have coaching badges. People go, you're showing them in towards the goal. I've got no problem with that. Particularly, yeah, if they play a left-footed player wide. Now, if they play a right-footed player, some people might say, going to show him inside? Yeah. Now, the option is if you're a quick right back and he's a slow left-footed left winger, you might want to show him outside, but don't dare get beat. I'd rather show him inside and then have to do some clever combination play. The best team at getting in these little pockets here are Man City. They're the best team at doing that, particularly with the system they play. So if you're playing against Man City, I may well say, if Sterling's on the right and he's playing wide on the touchline, I might say, show him down the line. Because I know if he does get past me, what his left foot's like. So, for me, your keeper as well is really important. So I'm just put something about a keeper. The strategies that you use are dependent on who you're playing. But your overall system and your bigger picture of the detail of do we show him inside, do we show him outside, you'll have a big picture of what your strategy is. But if they swap personnel, then you might swap personnel and it might be, no, we're going to get him inside, we're going to get him outside. But overall, mainly I like showing him inside to congested areas, particularly when you're playing against sides like Liverpool. Liverpool find it really difficult to break down sides that sit deep. Atletico Madrid, Jurgen Klopp moaned about anti-football. He got upset the other night. He gets really upset when sides are not open and play expensive because he can't break it down. Manchester United are not as good as breaking down sides that sit deep. Yeah. When you've got three quick players up top, they want to run in behind. They're not good with their back to goal. You know, so if you look at the lad on the right the other night, was very poor. Rashford, not that good with his back to goal. Cavani he's a wriggler and he's a turner. And it depends who they got in the hole. If they got the Dutchman, he's all right in there. But invariably, if you drop deep against Man United, they haven't got this ability to keep it moving and pop in here. Watch how many times Man City get in these half spaces, as they call them, these little areas here. Yeah. So just to recap, I'm going to take all the yellows off there. It's my way. It's not everybody's way. And if you look at the midfield, again, this is the sort of shape you're looking at. Yeah. So when you're checking it on pitch when you're looking, does your midfield or does your team look like that? Forget the front two. Does your team look like that when the ball's in that wide area? Because if it does, you're looking good to me. Yeah, you're forcing it inside. Now look at that. If it can't go there, we can go off even further. Yeah. The less pressure on the ball, the deeper are the covering players. Because if they go high, it can be penetrated. The higher the pressure, the higher the cover. Yeah, we can even be right across. If there's no pressure, long diag. Less pressure, deeper the cover, the furthest players, the further away. Yeah. Higher the pressure, higher the cover, higher the balancing players, because it can't go there. Again, so if they're deeper and they're further away, then that must mean the same for these. Look at that shape. That player is deeper than that one is deeper than that one is in front. That one's level. If we're up here, that's where you hold the box for me. But that's what you're looking at. Sweep the keeper. So guys, any question on that? Because that concludes the presentation on out of possession. We've got a slide at the moment. I've got some new ventures coming up, but I'll talk more about them in the next presentation. I'm ready to answer questions, but I'm just going to say to you guys, the next presentation I'm going to do is on the 4-4-2 diamond. So there's the 4-4-2. I'm going to put on the 4-4-2 diamond next time. Yep. And it's going to look something like that. Yeah, so it's just a variation on 4-4-2. And if you look at it, it's what Pep does. They play 4-3-3. Yeah, and everyone talks about this false 9, so I'll put the right numbers in there. If you play 4-3-3, yeah, 4-3-3, and you just tweak it, so you play 4-3-3, 4-3-3, and you tweak it and you drop him in there, you play them a bit narrow, you've then got that diamond. So it's flexible, and that's what they do. That's what Man City do. Everyone says they're playing 4-3-3 when sometimes it just morphs between a 4-3-3 and out of possession, it will be a 4-3-3. So when they haven't got it, they'll do that. And when they do get it, it'll do that. And there's two centre halves often sitting in here, don't know what to do. And if they come in, whoever's playing there, they leave that space for whoever's playing there. That's my next presentation. Talk about in possession, out possession. Also, going to chuck another one in because the next one after will change again, because the 4-3-3 is so flexible because it can drop into a 3-4-3. So if you look at it, is it a 4-3-3? Changing there, it becomes a diamond. If you drop him in there and you play them, then you've got a 3-4-3. That's why I think it's so flexible. Anyway, guys, thanks for your time. Hopefully you've enjoyed something and you've picked something up tonight. I know for the numbers we've still got in there. What you've got here is I've got a new venture. We're doing some trials. We're doing some Coach Ed stuff. You'll see that on our platform. We're going to invite people from the States and Canada. I'm going to put some stuff on, you know, for coaches, residential stuff, 1 and 2 day stuff. So if you're interested in that, sign up to us. Just join on our YouTube channel. Become a subscriber. You don't have to pay. Have a look at the stuff we've done. I'm going to get some very well-known coaches, big names, to come down and deliver some stuff when this lockdown's lifted. Some players or coaches that have been academy managers, that have produced players. I'll get ex-managers who are, you know, highly respected as coaches, and I'll get some present-day coaches about. So we're going to offer a variety of things. We're offering trials to elite players. If you look on there and you take that information, my website is coming out this week, and you can have a quick look at that. What would be great if you can share it with your friends or anyone else. I'm just coming to terms with social media, so you might have a problem this week. thanks to you guys tonight. Without you, the numbers have been good. Tell your friends about us. If you've got questions, I'm still going to be here for another 5 minutes. If you've got a question you want to ask, feel free to stay and ask it. But guys, get back to your families. Have a good day. Thanks very much. Look forward to you registering and delivering the next one. I think the presentation will be on the 21st of February. And hopefully you would have picked something up tonight. And like I said, it's not gospel. You develop your own ways of doing things. And if you've enjoyed it, tell your friends. If you haven't, then you've probably gone already. Thanks very much, guys. Have a good evening or have a good day. Thank you.